Every Thursday morning in Raleigh, North Carolina, Marcus Ellison woke up with the same knot in his stomach. Trash day should have been routine, one of those chores that barely earned a second thought. But for Marcus, it had become a weekly test of patience and dignity. He would step out of his neat brick house, coffee still warm in his hand, and see the same sight: his Green City-issued trash bin tipped over, sometimes dented, sometimes scraped, always lying awkwardly on the curb, like a fallen soldier. It wasn't the wind. He knew that much. The neighborhood was calm, the kind of manicured subdivision where trees swayed lazily, not fiercely. It wasn't coincidence. Either lightning didn't strike the same place this many times. No, this was deliberate. Again? Marcus muttered one steamy July morning, setting the bin upright with a grunt. A fresh streak of grey plastic rubbed raw along the lid caught his eye. Right next to it, faint but visible, were tire marks on the curb. His neighbor across the street, Peter Morrison, an older white man with a wiry frame, stood at the edge of his driveway, watering petunias. He gave Marcus a knowing look and shook his head. "Saw it again, Marcus?" Peter called out. "Same as last week." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She doesn't even try to hide it anymore, does she?" Peter let out a sigh, adjusting the brim of his baseball cap. "That woman's made herself queen of this cul-de-sac. Been that way for years." Marcus didn't need him to say her name. Everyone knew who that woman was. Linda Prescott, Homeowners Association president, self-declared gatekeeper of the neighborhood, and thorn in Marcus's side since the day his family moved in 6 months ago. When Marcus first saw the listing for the house, it had felt like a dream. A quiet suburb with wide sidewalks, trimmed lawns, and enough space for his kids, 10-year-old Caleb and 8-year-old Naomi, to ride bikes without dodging city traffic. Raleigh was close enough to commute to work, but far enough that evenings promised peace. He'd imagined block parties, backyard barbecues, a fresh start for his family. But Linda Prescott had other ideas. The very first week after they moved in, she showed up at Marcus's door holding a clipboard, her blonde bob perfectly sprayed into place. "Mr. Ellison," she said, voice sweet as honey but sharp around the edges, "I just wanted to welcome you to our community. Lovely shutters you've chosen, though technically, they don't quite match the approved color palette." Marcus had laughed awkwardly, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. From then on, it seemed Linda had binoculars trained on his house. A month later came a formal notice. Caleb's basketball left near the curb was unsightly. Then another, about Naomi's sidewalk chalk, disrupting neighborhood aesthetics. Even the rocking chair on the front porch earned a written warning for being inconsistent with architectural harmony. Marcus had tried to shrug it off, joking with his wife Angela that Linda must run the HOA like a boot camp. But deep down, it didn't feel funny, especially when Caleb asked one night, "Dad, why doesn't that lady like us?" And now, the trash can. It started subtle. One week it was scuffed, another week tipped halfway. But soon the pattern was obvious. Every Thursday morning, like clockwork, Linda's silver sedan would back out of her driveway, accidentally, brushing against Marcus's bin. One nudge was all it took. By the time he came out for work, the bin was down, dented, sometimes cracked. He'd confronted her once, months back. "Linda, I've noticed my trash bin keeps ending up knocked over. Have you seen anything?" She adjusted her oversized sunglasses and smiled faintly. "Well, Marcus, these bins are flimsy. Could be the wind, could be the garbage trucks, maybe you should ask the city for a sturdier one." Then she'd walked away without waiting for an answer. That smirk haunted him. Even Caleb had noticed. "Dad, she does it on purpose, doesn't she?" His son's young voice carried both curiosity and confusion, like he was trying to make sense of an adult world that didn't always play fair. Marcus forced a reassuring smile. "Don't worry about it, buddy. Dad'll take care of it." But inside, he felt cornered. Ignoring Linda meant letting her win. But pushing back risked making the neighborhood unbearable for his family. That Thursday morning, as the heat already rose in waves from the pavement, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to let this keep happening. He was tired of pretending it didn't matter. Tired of watching Angela's shoulders tense every time Linda's name came up. Tired of teaching his kids silence when what they needed was courage. This wasn't just about a trash can, it was about respect, about dignity, about not letting someone, especially someone who thought her title gave her unchecked power, decide who belonged and who didn't. As Linda's car rolled back into her driveway across the street, her sunglasses reflecting the morning sun, Marcus set the bin upright one last time and whispered to himself, "Not again. Not this time." He didn't yet know how he would stop her, but the wheels in his mind were already turning. And what began as a small act of pettiness was about to ignite a neighborhood drama bigger than anyone could have imagined. By late July, the tension in the Ellison household was no longer confined to Marcus's quiet frustration. It seeped into dinner conversations, into the way Angela sighed when opening the mailbox, into the cautious glances Caleb and Naomi exchanged every Thursday morning. The trash bin, once an afterthought, had become a symbol of something larger. A neighbor's disdain, an HOA president's unchecked authority, and the gnawing question of whether Marcus's family truly belonged in this neighborhood. Angela had tried to keep the peace. She was practical, thoughtful, the kind of woman who believed most conflicts could be solved with patience and kindness. But even she had limits. One evening, after another notice arrived in the mail about improperly stored toys, Angela placed a letter on the table with a thud. "It's a basketball, Marcus, our son's basketball. She acts like it's graffiti." Marcus rubbed his temples, the weight of the day heavy on his shoulders. "I know, believe me, I know." Angela studied him, her eyes softening. "You can't just let this eat at you. Caleb asked me again today why Mrs. Prescott hates us. What do I even tell him? That it's just about rules?" Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. He'd spent years in the Navy, learning how to read pressure, how to hold steady when storms threatened to break a ship apart. But this was different. This was his family, his home, the place that was supposed to be safe. "I'll handle it," he said quietly, almost more to himself than to her. Angela reached across the table, resting her hand over his. "Just promise me, Marcus. Promise me you won't let her drag us down to her level. We're better than that." He nodded, though the resolve forming inside him wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing a line, about showing his children that standing firm didn't mean sinking low. Outside, the neighborhood wore its perfection like a mask. Lawns trimmed evenly, shutters painted within the approved palette, porches free of unsanctioned furniture. But Marcus began noticing cracks in that facade. Neighbors avoided eye contact when Linda walked past. Conversations hushed when she appeared, clipboard in hand. Some offered Marcus sympathetic looks, small nods that said, "We see what's happening." But no one spoke out. Fear of her reach kept their voices low. Peter Morrison was the rare exception. One Saturday, as Marcus trimmed hedges near the driveway, Peter strolled over with his dog. "She's got it out for you, Marcus. Don't fool yourself. That trash bin nonsense. It's not about trash, it's about control." Marcus looked up, sweat glistening on his forehead. "You think so?" Peter let out a dry laugh. "Son, I've lived here 20 years. I've seen her pull this with others, but not like this. She smells weakness, and she presses harder. That's her game." Marcus's jaw clenched. Weakness. That word cut deep. The following Thursday, he decided to test his theory. Instead of leaving for work at his usual hour, Marcus parked his car down the block, angled so he had a clear view of his driveway. His reinforced sense of suspicion hummed like a taut wire dot at precisely 8:12 a.m. Linda's silver sedan backed out of her driveway. She didn't slow, didn't even glance toward the curb. Her bumper brushed the side of Marcus's bin, toppling it effortlessly. She adjusted her mirrors and drove off, sunglasses reflecting the morning sun. Marcus gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale against the leather. He had seen enough. That evening, over dinner, he told his family, "It's not the wind, it's not the trucks. I watched her do it this morning." Naomi's fork clattered against her plate. "Why is she so mean to us?" Daddy." Marcus swallowed hard, forcing calm into his voice. Because sometimes, people like to think they're in charge of everyone else, but that doesn't make them right. Caleb leaned forward, anger sparking in his young eyes. "Then do something about it." Angela shot Marcus a warning glance, but the words had already landed. Do something. That night, as the house grew quiet, Marcus sat at his desk, scrolling through online forums. Stories poured across the screen, homeowners wrestling with difficult HOAs, presidents who acted more like dictators than neighbors. Some posts were funny, others infuriating, a few almost tragic. The advice was clear. Document everything. Get proof. Don't play her game, outsmart it. Marcus ordered a motion-activated security camera with night vision, discreet enough to mount above the garage. But even as he clicked confirm purchase, another idea flickered. It wasn't enough to catch her in the act. He wanted her to stop permanently scrolling further. He stumbled across a DIY forum where someone described reinforcing their trash bin with steel to keep raccoons out. The idea lit a spark in Marcus's mind. What if the bin didn't crumble under her bumper anymore? What if it fought back? The next weekend, Marcus drove into Raleigh and wandered the aisles of a hardware store like a man on a mission. Steel tubing, brackets, heavy-duty boltsy, bought it all, along with a brand new bin, identical on the outside, but destined to be different within. Late into the night, while Angela and the kids slept, Marcus worked in the garage. The rhythmic clatter of tools was his release, each drilled hole and tightened bolt a way to reclaim control. By Sunday morning, the reinforced bin stood ready. From the outside, it looked ordinary, but inside, it was a fortress. When Sophie patted, in rubbing sleep from her eyes, she tilted her head. "Dad, what are you doing?" Marcus smiled, brushing dust off his hands. "Just making sure our trash can doesn't fall over again." Her brow furrowed. "She's going to be mad, isn't she?" Marcus ruffled her hair. "Maybe, but sometimes, bullies need a lesson." By Wednesday night, the plan was complete. The bin sat near the curb, a silent soldier waiting for Thursday morning. The camera was in place, its lens trained carefully. On the street, Marcus lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Angela turned to him, whispering, "This isn't about revenge, right?" He shook his head. "No, it's about standing up for us, for Caleb, for Naomi, for all the neighbors who've been too scared to say anything." Angela studied him in the dim light, then finally nodded. "Then, make sure you do it right." Marcus exhaled, tension easing slightly. Tomorrow would mark a turning point. He didn't know how Linda would react, but one thing was certain. This time, she wouldn't see it coming. Thursday morning arrived with a tension Marcus could feel in his bones. He woke before the alarm, sitting in the kitchen with a mug of coffee, staring out at the street where his reinforced trash bin stood tall and ordinary looking. Angela entered, quietly, still in her robe, and studied him. "You look like you're going to battle." Marcus gave a wry smile. "In a way, I am." By the time Caleb and Naomi bounded down the stairs, chattering about school, Marcus had slipped into the role of calm father. He kissed them goodbye, sent them off with their lunches, but inside, every nerve was tuned to what was about to happen at 8:10 a.m. Like clockwork, Linda's front door opened. From his vantage point in the car parked discreetly down the block, Marcus felt his chest tighten. She was in her usual pressed blouse and slacks, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose. She carried herself with the practiced ease of someone who believed every square foot of the cul-de-sac belonged to her authority. Sliding into her silver sedan, she adjusted her mirrors and sipped from a travel mug. Marcus clenched the steering wheel. "Here we go," he whispered. The car backed out slowly, the same routine he had witnessed before. Only this time, the bin didn't budge. Instead of toppling with a hollow clatter, her bumper struck the hidden steel frame with a deep, metallic thunk. The sedan jolted sharply, the rear end bouncing slightly before settling again. Marcus exhaled, adrenaline rushing through his veins. He'd built it strong enough through the camera feed on his phone. He replayed the moment instantly, the bin unmoving, the car lurching, and, most satisfying of all, the split-second widening of Linda's eyes behind her sunglasses. For the first time in months, she hadn't gotten her way. Across the street, Peter Morrison, sipping coffee on his porch, froze mid-sip. He'd heard the sound too. The metallic clang echoed down the block like a gong, drawing a few blinds to twitch open. Linda stepped out of her car, her face pale with fury. She bent to inspect the bumper, now sporting a dent the size of a fist. Her perfect composure cracked as she rubbed furiously at the scuff, as if wiping away evidence would erase the humiliation. Marcus parked his car and walked toward her, keeping his steps measured. "Morning, Linda." She spun, her expression hardening. "Your trash can damaged my vehicle." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Funny, I thought your vehicle damaged my trash can." Again, her jaw tightened. "This is unacceptable. I'll be filing an official complaint with the HOA." By now, Peter had shuffled closer, his dog tugging at the leash. From another porch, Jillian appeared, arms crossed, clearly listening. Marcus held up his phone. "You go right ahead, Linda. Just make sure you mention my security camera caught everything, twice, crystal clear." For the first time, Linda faltered. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She turned on her heel, climbed back into her car, and slammed the door. The sedan limped away, its dented bumper scraping slightly as it disappeared around the corner. Peter let out a low whistle. "Guess she didn't see that coming." Marcus gave a half smile. That was the point. That evening, the Ellison family gathered around the dinner table as Marcus showed them the video. Caleb nearly fell off his chair laughing. She looked so shocked. Naomi giggled, covering her mouth. It's like she hit a wall. Even Angela, ever the voice of caution, cracked a smile. "I have to admit, Marcus, that was effective." But her smile faded quickly. "You know this isn't the end, right?" She's not the type to back down quietly. Marcus nodded, sliding the phone back into his pocket. "I know, but at least now she understands we're not easy targets." The next morning, whispers rippled through the cul-de-sac. Neighbors exchanged knowing glances as Linda's car pulled into her driveway, bumper clearly patched with tape. A few smirks appeared behind coffee mugs, small but undeniable signs that the tide was shifting. For years, she had wielded her authority unchecked. Now, her aura of invincibility had a crack. Later that week, a letter arrived in Marcus's mailbox. Official HOA stationery. The accusation, his modified trash receptacle, created a hazardous condition and violated community guidelines. Angela read it aloud, her voice laced with disbelief. "She's blaming you for endangering the neighborhood." Marcus chuckled. Dryly, the only thing endangered was her bumper. Caleb frowned. "Can she kick us out?" Marcus shook his head, ruffling his son's hair. "No one can kick us out of our home, son. Not her, not anyone." Still, the warning was clear. Linda wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. That Saturday, Marcus fired up the grill in the driveway, setting out folding chairs and a cooler of sodas. At first, only Peter wandered over, then Jillian, then a trickle of families who usually kept their heads down. Soon, half the block had gathered, kids running through sprinklers, adults chatting and laughing like old friends. It was the kind of community gathering Marcus had envisioned when they first moved here. The kind Linda had quietly suffocated with her rules and notices. Inevitably, she appeared. Clipboard in hand, lips pressed thin, she stopped at the edge of the driveway. "Is this a sanctioned gathering?" she demanded. Marcus set down his spatula. "It's neighbors spending time together. Nothing in the handbook against that." Silence followed. Neighbors watched closely. For the first time, no one backed her up. No one nodded along with her authority. They simply stood, some openly defiant, others quietly relieved, but united in their refusal to let her spoil the moment. Linda's face flushed. Without another word, she turned and marched back to her house, her clipboard clutched tightly at her side. Marcus exhaled, feeling Angela slip her hand into his. "You see what just happened?" she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, people aren't afraid anymore." But he also knew this wasn't over. Linda Prescott wasn't the type to accept defeat. She would fight harder, dig deeper, do whatever she could to reassert control. Still, for the first time since moving to Raleigh, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope, because now, the neighborhood had seen her stumble, and they had seen him stand. The HOA meeting that Thursday evening was held in the community clubhouse, a beige, low-slung building with fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over rows of folding chairs. Usually, attendance was sparse. Residents rarely showed up unless fines were involved. But tonight was different. The room was full. Neighbors filled the chairs, some leaning against walls, others peering through the doorway. The buzz of whispered conversations hinted at what had brought them all out. The trash can incident had spread like wildfire. Marcus sat near the front, Angela by his side, calm but steady. Caleb and Naomi were home with Peter's wife, giving Marcus the freedom to focus entirely on what was to come. His phone rested in his pocket, the video queued up and ready. At precisely 7 o'clock. Linda Prescott strode to the podium, clipboard in hand, her expression tight. She tapped the microphone once, commanding silence. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to address a matter of grave concern regarding community safety and standards." Her voice carried its usual authority, clipped and deliberate. "One of our residents, Mr. Marcus Ellison, has taken it upon himself to modify his city-issued trash receptacle in a way that poses a clear hazard. This behavior is reckless, unsanctioned, and dangerous to both property and residents." A murmur rippled through the room. Some heads turned toward Marcus, curious, skeptical. Others exchanged knowing glances. Linda pressed on. "Last week, my own vehicle sustained damage because of this so-called fortified bin. If left unchecked, such modifications could lead to injuries, lawsuits, and insurance claims that affect all of us. Therefore, I am moving to fine Mr. Ellison and demand immediate removal of the altered receptacle." She stepped back from the podium, clearly expecting nods of agreement, but the room remained still. Marcus rose slowly, straightening his shoulders. His years in the army had taught him to stand tall under pressure, and tonight, he felt that training steady him. "May I respond?" he asked, his voice even. The board chair, an older man named Mr. Henderson, nodded. "Go ahead." Marcus walked to the podium, the weight of every eye in the room following him. He paused, scanning the crowd, then began, "My family and I moved here because we wanted peace. A safe, welcoming neighborhood where our kids could ride their bikes and grow up without fear. But from the day we arrived, Mrs. Prescott has made it clear she didn't approve of us. First, it was the paint on our shutters. Then, a basketball by the curb, a chair on our porch, and finally, our trash can." He took out his phone, holding it up. "She claims my bin is a hazard. But here's the truth." With a few taps, the video played on the screen behind him. The projector showed Linda's silver sedan backing out, striking the bin, jolting to a stop as the steel frame held firm. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Marcus let the clip run again, the sound of the metallic thunk echoing through the speakers. Then he paused it on the frame, showing Linda stepping out, glaring at the damage. "This isn't about safety, it's about control. For months, she used her position to bully my family. She thought we'd be too scared to push back. But when I reinforced my trash can not to harm anyone, but to stop her from damaging it, she finally met something she couldn't push over." He turned from the screen, facing the crowd. "My kids shouldn't have to ask why the woman in charge of our community keeps targeting us. My wife shouldn't have to worry about another letter in the mailbox every week. And none of you should have to live under fear that a clipboard and a title mean you don't belong." The room was silent, not hostile, not skeptical. Silent in the way people are when the truth finally lands. Marcus softened his voice. "I'm not here to fight, I'm here to live, to belong, just like all of you. And if standing up means exposing the truth, then I'll do it every time, because respect should go both ways." He stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Peter Morrison stood up, clearing his throat. "He's right. I've seen it with my own eyes. She's been after his family since they moved in. Enough is enough." Gillian rose next. "She came after us. Uwe just stayed quiet. But Marcus is right. We shouldn't have to art." One by one, voices joined in. Neighbors who had been silent for years now spoke, sharing their own small grievances, each story layering on top of the last, until the weight of it crushed the illusion of Linda's authority. Linda's face turned crimson. She tried to interject, but her words were drowned in the swell of voices. For the first time, her clipboard looked less like a weapon and more like a shield she couldn't hide behind. Mr. Henderson finally raised his hand, restoring order. His voice was calm but firm. "Mrs. Prescott, it seems the community has spoken. This board will be reviewing your conduct, and until then, your authority as president is suspended." The room erupted in murmurs. Linda's eyes widened, but before she could argue, Henderson continued, "And as for Mr. Ellison, there will be no fines. His actions were justified. Case closed." Marcus returned to his seat, Angela squeezing his hand tightly. Around them, neighbors leaned in with smiles, nods, and whispered words of support. The shift was palpable. For months, Linda had ruled through intimidation. But now, the community had chosen courage over fear. Later that night, as Marcus sat on his porch under the quiet North Carolina sky, Caleb and Naomi came out with their homework in hand. "Dad," Naomi asked, "does this mean she's gone?" Marcus smiled gently. "Not gone. But she's not in charge anymore." Caleb grinned. "Because you stood up." Marcus looked at his kids, pride swelling in his chest. "Because we stood up. All of us." Angela leaned against him, her voice soft. "You didn't just protect us, Marcus. You gave everyone else permission to stop being afraid." He let the words settle as he gazed across the cul-de-sac. Neighbors who once kept their blinds shut were out talking, laughing, reclaiming the sense of community Linda had stifled. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. For the first time since moving to Raleigh, it truly felt like home, because, in the end, it hadn't been about a trash can or even Linda Prescott. It had been about dignity, about knowing when enough was enough, and about proving, once and for all, that no one could silence a family determined to stand tall.